Hello, welcome to another episode of the Silk and Steel podcast. I am your host, Carl Za. Today we have a very special program for you guys. And I have a guest all the way from Shanghai, China. Hello, Dana.
Ni hao. What up, though?
Welcome to the show. So I got to know you on Facebook. I remember there was one time I posted a rap video of a Uyghur rapper, and you are being my Facebook friend. You made a comment say, "Hey, I work with that guy." I'm like, "Whoa, who's this?" And then then we got in touch, and you invite me to your Aire mic on Clubhouse. So you have a very fascinating life, especially as a black person, as a Muslim living in China. So I wanted to hear your experience straight from you. How did how did you end up in China? Who are you? Maybe introduce yourself for my audience first. Who are you? How did you end up in China?
Okay, so my name is Dana Burton, aka Showtyme. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and I found my way to the People's Republic of China in 1999. And I grew up in a pretty militant, radical neighborhood that was inspired by the Black Panthers, the League of the Revolutionary Black Workers, the Nation of Islam, Grace Lee Boggs. But we had a lot of revolutionary movements in my community. And I was heavily inspired by the thoughts of Malcolm X and the writings of Huey P. Newton. And they portrayed China in a very positive light and an inspirational light. And so that was one of my influences on me to want to come to China and see for myself. So I actually came in 1999. I was an educator. I taught at a high school, at Shanghai High School, with an international school. And I kind of followed in the footsteps of Vicky Garvin, an African-American that came to China, I believe in the 50s and 60s, and who was teaching African-American history and culture in the public schools in China. So I'm actually teaching Malcolm X in the high schools. And I've sort of made my name and claim to fame over here as a promoter of hip-hop, and one of the earliest promoters and pioneers of being a bridge for hip-hop culture, particularly for my community in Detroit and China. And so what I've done is not only help to develop the rap scene in particular, but I've been a bridge bringing over American artists to China and back and forth from China to the States. And I consider myself a community organizer, a community builder, a bridge builder, an activist, a lover of the culture. And it's been an incredible experience for me. It's a lifelong journey. I've spent half of my adult life in the People's Republic of China. I've been here 22 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I always say, it's 22 years. So I always say that, I was born in USA, but I was made in China. So
nice.
That's what it is for me. Yeah.
So you're about my age when you say you're half of your adult years. Oh, wow. So what was the first time? So now it's 20. Oh, right. You said 1999. What?
Yeah.
What made you first time? What made you decide? Okay, I'm gonna go China, and I'm gonna go settle down. I did that happen? Appear in your mind the first when you first came to China? You thought to yourself, okay, I'm just gonna live here.
No. Yeah, right. No, so I think that was a process. It took about 3 or 4 years for me to commit. And there have been ups and downs. Sometimes you question the decision to even come, and how long will you last, and will it work, and is it the right thing? But like I said, I was deeply inspired by Malcolm X. And the things that Malcolm X spoke about China just will stay with me forever. He said that Arabic is the most powerful spiritual language in the world, and Chinese is the most powerful political language in the world. And often people mention Malcolm X's trip to Saudi Arabia and his Hajj and the influence on his life and the letter that he wrote back home, but they don't mention his experience in Ghana meeting the Chinese ambassador, who later became the Chinese ambassador to the United Nations. And Malcolm met with him in Ghana, and they had a really good connection. So much so that Malcolm said that this man was one of the most humane men that he ever met in his life. And he said that he spoke very reasonably. He didn't speak like a racist. And he actually told Malcolm that, you can't stand on the ground of racism. If that's your foundation, nothing else will hold. And he was deeply impacted by the man. He spoke about China at length throughout the autobiography of Malcolm X and many of his speeches. And so between that, the Black Panthers, W.E.B. Du Bois, the things that they said about the society, I wanted to come and see for myself. I wanted to see firsthand. You got to remember, I'm coming from Detroit, born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, when crack and rap had the streets going crazy. And so what I saw with my own first eyes in Detroit was basically the failure of American democracy and the failure of capitalism. And it's something that had a profound effect on me. And I carried it throughout my life. I wanted to understand, how could we get things so bad? How can things be this wrong? And so part of that journey, make a long story short, like I said, I've been inspired by a lot of activists and community organizers and leaders. And even in my family, I come from an artist activist family. My mother is a legendary artist, and my father-in-law were revolutionary artists in Detroit. So I was always around forward-thinking people. My mother would live all over the world. She'd have a summer home in Mexico. She'd go to Africa, 20 times in her lifetime. She lived in Europe, Paris. So she was traveling. So I got the travel bug, but I wanted to see China. I wanted to see the largest, nation on earth with a system that was completely different from our own. And I wanted to learn something. So that's why I came. And I came thinking that I'd probably stay for a year and try to soak up as much as I can and go back. But then I just got sucked up into the whole movement, and it's been an incredible ride.
Yeah, I bet. We just miss each other because my first job, I went to Detroit on January 2001. I had a gig in Detroit downtown. I was pretty shocked by kind of the condition of the urban Detroit. And the big contrast between Detroit, the city center of Detroit, and the wealthy suburbs. I was just straight out of high school. College. I was straight out of college. And that was my first job, and it was like, oh wow, Detroit. It's just like how it was poor. I remember, I think, was it RoboCop supposed to be?
RoboCop.
Yeah, RoboCop. That was my one of my first American TV series while I was in China, right? And at what point did you decide? Okay, I'm gonna stay in China now.
I think I got to go back through my diary. I kept a really good diary. Most of it's on Facebook, but I remember writing in 2005, kind of giving up hope. For whatever reason, through all the challenges, the ups and downs, I was feeling kind of hopeless. And I felt like a cultural gap between the United States and China was too far. I felt like I was a really open-minded person. Now you got to remember, not only, being raised in Detroit, I had to deal with some of the greatest inequality, racial inequality. It's arguably the most highly racially segregated city in America. It's something like 89 to 90% of Detroit is black and the suburbs is white. But even with those racial disparities, I spent my high school in the suburbs. So I jumped from one community to another, and it was complete culture shock. So I was used to, culture shock and being, experienced to, new culture. So from the city to the suburbs and then later to college. So, and even coming from a radical black militant nationalist background, by the time I finished college, I was part of these, multiracial learning experience group. So I really opened my mind up to how to bridge different cultures, I had studied Latin, I studied Spanish, I studied Arabic. Did I forget anything else? What else did I study? And then later I studied Chinese. So, I thought I was an open-minded person, but after 5 years living in China, I figured like, if I can't do it, no one else can bridge this gap. It's not going to work. We're destined to clash. The East and the West are never going to get along. We'll never trust each other. We'll never understand. Just the issues I was having with friends, relationships, I felt hopeless. But some way I pushed through. I had some breakthroughs in life, and I just never turned back, man. Like, things really started to pick up, and it's taking time, man. Like, there's been times where I've doubted. I've felt like the perpetual foreigner and never felt like I fit in. But the amazing thing is, when I try to express this to my friends and loved ones, they look at me like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're Dana. You're one of us. They've never even crossed their mind that I had issues because I've been so welcomed. They're like, how could this go through your mind? And so, over time, when you build such a large community and people embrace you as one, you feel at home, and you feel peace, and you feel protected, and you feel ready for war. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm with my people, and we're here to fight the good fight.
Okay, so I want to ask you about your involvement in promoting hip hop in China, because you are one of the, I would say you are one of the early pioneers, right, to bring the hip hop culture into China. Can you talk a little bit about that? How you start doing that?
Yeah, well, coming from Detroit, we got a really cool hip hop tradition and a rap tradition. A lot of people know Eminem. They've heard from the movie. They've seen the Hip Hop Shop and the Shelter. This is a community that I grew up with. So I grew up near a place called the Shrine of the Black Madonna, and there was groups like Chaos and Maestro, and all these local artists that inspire me, that were really like conscious, politically motivated rappers. So I always look at hip hop as being connected to politics. And I actually went to school at a grade school called Aizu, and Proof, a man named Deshaun Holton, who was the mentor of Eminem. He was the one that taught Eminem how to rap, how to freestyle, and he made Eminem famous. Like, we were classmates. He was 1 year above me, and I think 1 year below me was a famous R&B singer by the name of Aire. So we got a rich tradition in hip hop. I could rap, I could freestyle, I would do little battles here and there, but I wasn't recording. But I had a lot of family members that recorded, and friends that recorded and produced, and I was really into the hip hop scene. And so when I came to China, I knew that that was my calling. I kind of thought to myself, if I'm gonna come to China, I want it to be a relationship of give and take. I want to learn something from these people. I want to get the knowledge and wisdom of their culture, but I know I got to be able to bring something to the table. It's got to be fair trade, and hip hop was that culture that I knew that was embedded in me, that I could help, be an influencer. So there wasn't a lot of rap music or rap culture. I started hooking up with the DJs. I didn't even know a lot about turntablism or b-boy dancing culture, but it was flourishing over here. And I just took to the scene. I connected with the early pioneers, but I was like the main person pushing rap in mainland China. So much so that, I was the first guy to bring, these guys from Hong Kong, LMF, Lazy Motherfuckers, Lazy Clan. I was the first one to ever bring them to China, do it like a birthday party. But, I was throwing parties, underground parties, and then I started the first rap battle in China in 2002 at a shopping mall called Yaxin Xinhuo Guanzhang. And I got like 10 rappers from all across China, from Beijing, Shanghai, where else was it? From Hong Kong, Xiamen. Dudes were coming from all over. And then we did the battle. They never seen anything like that. I actually did the battle before the battle rap craze was popular in America. This is before the 8 Mile movie even came out. And so the next year 8 Mile came out, then the battle just went crazy. And I've been going nonstop. In 20 years, it's our, and I believe it's the longest running rap battle in the world. The longest continuously running rap battle on the face of the earth. 20 years in China, the Iron Mike, we went from one city to doing it in 1 year, 34 cities. Sometimes in one city, 200 kids on stage in Guangzhou. to pretty much laying the foundation for rap culture and being that institution that gave birth to all of the pioneers of rap in China.
So I'm curious, the very first rap battle you hosted, what was the reaction from the audience, from the Chinese people who were gathering to watch?
I got to share some footage with you. It was amazing. I mean, they were enthralled. They enjoyed it. It was mostly young, younger generation, youth. I think, they're mostly teenagers. Most of the people came because of my friends in the dance community. One of my brothers named Wang Han, Stanley Wan, Dragon, who's an OG, Dragon Dancing Studios in China, who's considered, one of the pioneer B-boys. He's traveled all over the world, hung out with, Cool Herc and whatnot. He's he brought in all the dance community, and they had never seen anything like it before. What's interesting is, there were three main styles that stood out that I think have been the most influential styles in China. And one was coming from Shanghai, the Shanghai style, where these kids were a little bit more educated, more middle class. Shanghai's a city of aggressive education. That's what it's known for, the high education and competitiveness. So kind of clean cut people. This guy was called Black Bubble. Hey Pow Pow, Black Bubble, the local OG from Shanghai. And he had this smooth kind of style that was, it was pretty dope. But the people were loving it. They were feeling it. He did his thing. There was another kid. It was really interesting. There were a lot of young girls in the crowd, a lot of teenage girls. And they gravitated to this kid named Yo-Yo, who ultimately fell out of hip hop. He actually didn't even rap in Chinese. He rapped in Korean. He was doing like K-pop, and the girls loved it. They were going crazy, screaming. And we still see that influence to the day. That's how influential Korean hip hop is on Chinese. That the first rap battle, one of the top three rappers was rapping in Korean. And then the third dude, who won the battle, who I chose to win, was from Beijing. His name is Weber, and I consider him the greatest rapper in China of all time. He brought a real gritty street hutong, just ghetto street style from Beijing. And like the reason I chose him was because I was actually the judge. I judged the battle. The crowd was kind of split, but I made the final decision. And the crowd was split between Black Bubble and Yo-Yo and Wang Bo, Weber. Wang Bo is actually, his rap name was Weber. I'm from Detroit. He took the name after one of the most famous basketball players from Detroit that I actually, grew up at the same time with. So it was a crazy connection. And I chose him because there were actually some peasants in the front row. And these peasants, tattered clothes and everything, you could smell the alcohol, the baijiu on them. They were completely drunk, inebriated, face all red. And they were up front, and they were just clapping and going crazy for Weber. And I was like, if this man could touch the everyday people, then he's got to be the people's champ. So I chose him.
Wow. Yeah. What a story. But you have seen throughout 20 years, right? You have seen how the hip hop and rap grow. Like what kind of what's the difference you have witnessed over the years? How the both how the Chinese audience react to hip hop, and also I'm assuming like the people you work with have gained a lot more fame now than when they first started.
Well, it's been unbelievable. We've been there was always a glass ceiling. Mm-hmm. There was a barrier we couldn't break through because people, the gatekeepers of the industry, whether it's television people or the marketers, they looked at hip hop with a lot of skepticism. It was a new cultural art form, and they couldn't judge if something was good or bad. And so, the whole thing of rapping really hadn't taken off. There weren't a lot of rappers. And so it took a long time for rap to break into the mainstream. Like in 2017, that we had a major breakthrough with rap culture. The dance scene, like I have friends that organize b-boy battles in Xinjiang, and 10,000 people come to these b-boy battles.
Wow.
And all 10,000 are b-boys and b-girls.
Wow.
All 10,000 kids from all across the country, like warrior. They're coming out, you know, in groups of 10 and 20 from every city to come to this festival. And Iron Mike never got that big, but it was after the rap of China that went mainstream, 2.6 billion views, that the commercial industry went kind of crazy and started to invest, you know, massive speculation. And it's just been one amazing roller coaster of a ride. Like, I can't even express the magnitude that it's impacted Chinese society and culture, and the amount of output and, you know, content that's been created with hip hop. I think that I tell people all the time, and I know Americans get upset because everything has to be American centric. For them to even conceptualize that right now, China has already left America. Hip hop has already left America, and it's in China. It has a new home in China. It's kind of like when Buddhism left India and moved to the East, or Islam left Saudi Arabia and moved to other worlds. There comes a point where people adopt culture, and they actually produce more content and more people believe in it than the originators did. And we're getting to that point in China numerically. So it's going to be something. I mean, there's three types of movements that I consider the major movements driving hip hop in China. One is the community, bottom grass, which I like, is the believers, the rappers and DJs that love color, you know, maybe esoteric or idealistic view of it, and it's coming from the heart, right? They're driving this from the grassroots bottom up. And then there's the commercial industry that for a long time there were opportunities like I got in 2007. There was they called me to promotional about it in Foreign Policy magazine. They actually wrote an article, you know, back in 2007. So I got a commercial deal and I did 116 shows across 60 cities in a year. That shows you the you know, what the commercial industry can do when they back hip hop. But you'll get one, you know, a couple of opportunities like that, you know, over those years, not that many. But by 2017 is when it went nuts and everyone went crazy invested in it. So you got the commercial industry, you got the and then you have something called hip hop socialism with Chinese characteristics. And that's actually the state itself and the government investing in hip hop. In 2012 or 13, Xi Jinping gave a speech at the Art and Literature Forum or whatnot. And he said to the people, in direct words, he was like, if the young people want hip hop, then we will give them hip hop with socialist values and Chinese characteristics. And so they actually made a commitment and they put all their energy into basically the hip hop dance committees. So there's a massive dance community, you know, in coordination with the state that does work across the nation. And the output that they do is mind blowing. They do workshops in the schools. They have a certification for dance classes, and they do really big, massive productions. And it's a movement unto themselves. The people themselves, and the government. So that's why I always say I feel like I'm always somewhere between God, gangster, and the government.
Actually, you mentioned I remember I was posting something related to the Uyghur culture on my Facebook, and you left it on a comment that to the point that you launched the career of the famous Uyghur rapper Aize, right? He's pretty big now. Can you talk about that? How you guys meet, and you know how you help him got set up?
Yeah. Aire showed me a lot of love. I think there was a CGTN interview where they asked him about his career and how he got started, and he tells the story in his own words about how he came up through the ranks of the Iron Mike and through my battle, and it was through that battle that, you know, he learned his rap skills and became part of the rap community, and that's what kind of pushed him and other MCs to kind of elevate their art form. So that's the one thing about an Iron Mike. It's like a really competitive battle. And I think that's something that the commercial industry can't replicate. So you get all these young kids that are hungry from all over. They come from the ghetto, they come from impoverished areas, middle class, whatever. And they come to these like street battles and they got to fight. They got to claw to the top. And it's highly competitive. Like I said, like some events, some local battles may have 200 MCs in one day all competing. You might battle 7 or 11 dudes in one night, and you got to, claw your way to the top, to the national final. And he's one of the, the kids that made it to the number 2 at the Iron Mike. The Uyghur community, they've always showed so much love and respect to me because I was the first platform to give them a voice in China. It was the first time you ever heard Uyghur youth being able to express themselves and some of their, emotions and experiences unfettered on a public forum. One of the earliest influences was a guy named Ma Jing, and it was like 2010. He won in Beijing, and it was him versus the local hometown Beijing hero, and they had a really good intense battle. And Ma Jing won the crowd over so much that all the kids, 400 or 500 kids in Beijing, started screaming and shouting, Xinjiang, Xinjiang. It was wild. So you can see this footage in the Story of the Iron Mike. Story of the Iron Mike. It was a documentary done by Vice Films. It ultimately came under the Bieda title. Vice folded in China, so they called it Bieda. But you can find it on YouTube or Vimeo, The Story of the Iron Mike, and you'll see Ma Jing, you'll see Aire. They even go to Xinjiang and show you his home and where he came from, and you can see the classic battles that he was involved in. And then later, my homie started, I never physically went, but they organized, the Iron Mike in Urumqi. And every year they would organize it and play that documentary on the big screen, like a movie theater. And I've even had camera crews come out and interview me for Xinjiang local television, to the point where, I'm considered a local legend and a hero to those people for giving them that platform and opportunity. So.
Oh, you actually, I think you sent me the link to the documentary, Iron Mike 2017, the documentary of Chinese freestyle rap. I'll put the link to my on the show notes for my Patreon audience subscribers. This is good stuff. Yeah, wow. So I'm where is thank you. I mean, I knew there's a story behind that. So were you part of that making of that documentary, the Iron Mike 2017? I mean, it's your event, right?
Yeah, it's my story. Like I'm the main narrator, so I started off, right. And 70% of the footage is historical footage. So it's all footage that I collected and gave to them. It took them over a year to make that documentary. There was so much footage that they had to piece together. But it shows you 15 years of the Iron Mike, some of the key figures, and how the scene has grown, and you get a real sense of what it feels like to be at the battles and the issues that the artists are concerned with in terms of the culture. So I'm really proud of that, as well as Damon Dash. He's the founder of Rockefeller Records with Jay-Z and Kareem Biggs Burks. He's the guy that discovered Jay-Z, and he discovered Kanye West and many others. He actually came to China around 2010, and we had a very good connection. We made a film, a documentary called We Went to China, and it's on his platform, but you can see clips on YouTube. And in China, there's been multiple documentaries, probably about at least three, going back as far as 2002, I think. CCTV did a whole documentary on the Iron Mike, and they literally played it on the documentary channel for like 4 years, like all the time on mainstream Chinese TV. They were playing a documentary about this rap battle. And the other one was called Shanghai 8 Mile, Shanghai Bai Yingli. And so it's a well-known story in China. It's all over the internet. Even the historians of hip hop across the world. I'm in the Cambridge book of world music history. I got a little footnote for my contribution. So it's been going a long time and influenced a lot of people.
Okay, so you, as part of this making of this documentary, Iron Mike China, you and the camera crew actually traveled to Xinjiang, right? The home of Aize. What did you see there?
I didn't go. They went. I didn't
Oh,
go.
they
But
went.
They went.
Okay.
Yeah, they went.
Okay. Okay. So I want to put the focus back on you, because you as a black person, as a Muslim living in China, a long-term resident in China, what, because that makes your experience stand out from your other expats, coming into China, right? And you have that's why I invited you on the show, because you have a very unique perspective into China and the U.S.-China relations. What, this is your chance. This is your my show is your platform right now. Whatever you want to get off your chest, you go ahead.
I mean, you know what? I think that I've learned a lot.
Let me ask a couple questions. Let me do some lead on question. So, for example,
cool.
in the Western media, especially CNN, MSNBC, we hear a lot of reporting about racism in China, right? So, like especially the latest talk is anti-black racism in China. So can you speak about that as a person who actually live in China?
Yeah, it's complete bullshit. It's propaganda. And, as an individual, I can tell you that I've never experienced anything remotely close to the racism that we have in the United States. So much so that whatever prejudice or discrimination that I felt over here, you can't even use the word racism to describe it. Because there's a certain level of hatred and violence that I've never experienced over here, and that doesn't exist. And I'm not the only one to say this. Like sometimes, when I say like there's no racism in China, I know that's an extreme thing to say, but I found a lot of black people that say the same exact thing, and that's why I don't feel crazy and I don't feel alone in saying it. And we have to say it in such stark terms, because again, whatever we have, other run-ins we have, maybe with people that might be xenophobic, that might be closed-minded, there isn't any kind of systematic discrimination against black people. And that if you're black or African or skinned, you come over here with skills and you come over here to learn or live, you are not going to feel the type of feelings or experiences that you have in the United States. So whatever it is, it's something different. And I hope that I'm looking forward to a documentary that's coming out. I have a friend, he's working on a Black Lives Matter in China. It's really not related to the political movement, but it's about black people in Shanghai. And he asked me that question. I gave him my answer. And I asked him, well, what about the other black people in the documentary? How did they respond? He said all of them responded the same way.
Wow.
And so a lot of the stories that you hear about in the media are completely exaggerated. They never give you the context, and they never give you the background story. And I think it's something worthy of maybe, I could come back on your show and we do a deep dive into exposing every single incident. And then when we tell you the reality of what it was like over here and the response from the government and the response from the people, hopefully it'll change some of your minds. People do ignorant things. There are definitely pockets of racism. But what I can say is I've always been overwhelmed and overjoyed by the pushback that happens when people publicly get out of line and do something racist. There is aggressive pushback, and I can count them, countless examples. You never know what's in somebody's heart, right? You can't judge that. But what I can say is the opportunities over here for people that carry themselves with grace and dignity and goodwill, there's genuine opportunities for friendship and coalition building, and there isn't the type of that we see coming. It just doesn't. Black people in the streets, the police, they're not harassing black people, and even those stories that you saw with the police in Guangzhou, we got like you need to hear the true story, what happened, and the response that happened. So there's always pushback, and I feel bad, like because when you say it the way I'm saying it now, no one's gonna believe me. They're gonna look at me like I'm crazy, like I'm a sellout. So I feel justified. Like ultimately, if to make people believe, you gotta give them the full story. So I hope you can bring me back so we can get into those details. But in general, no.
Okay. Oh, great. I would love to do an in-depth dive with you on all these events, specific events that's reported in the MSN. And I think the Guangzhou incident with the Africans in Guangzhou, that's widely covered, widely reported. If we could do a deep dive to what actually happened in the ground, that would be great. I know you have many contacts in China. You have been living there, and you have actually reached out to the people who were involved. Yeah, maybe that will probably take a longer period of time. We'll do that next. and now let's make this show focus on you, on your life. Just introduce what you're doing. And get so for my audience, whatever question you want to ask Dana about his experience living in China, put in the comments, right in the comments. I can compile the list, and the next time I get together with Dana, we can ask him these questions.
But if there's anything I want to say to the people is, follow your work. You've done incredible work, and I've learned a lot from watching your posts. Your podcast has been incredible. It is incredible. It is awesome. I'm a huge fan of your podcast. The deep dives into the history, the layers of it, and the point that I'm making is I just listened to the U.S. ambassador going back to the 80s, together for a panel every 5 years. I think it's called the U.S.-China Committee. And they do a panel, and they talk about their experience as being U.S. ambassadors. They themselves, emphatically, the majority of them, stress that one of the biggest impediments to understanding China is actually the Western media. And they, for whatever reason, Western media never gets it right. These really dark stories that completely fit into this whole scaremonger, boogeyman, xenophobic, evil yellow peril narrative. And so most Americans are bombarded every day with disinformation and misinformation. They're not getting the nuance, they're not getting the facts, and it's already strummed into their heads a certain narrative. And so only way to push back to that is, debunking those false narratives. And you can, check out your Twitter. You can check out your podcast. It's a great way to try to understand the reality of what's happening, the complexity.
Thank you for that plug. One of the reasons I decided to do this podcast is because I see that ever since I moved to United States in 1990, the China that's reported in the U.S. media is a China that's on a different planet. I mean, I do not recognize that as the homeland I left behind. And so this is my chance, thanks to the social media, this is my chance to share my experience, to share my knowledge. If people wanted to follow you and follow your work, where can they go, Dana?
They can't, to be honest. Like, I'm gonna keep it 100. I've been underground the whole time. Like, if you want to follow my work, you can look up the story of the Iron Mike on YouTube and Vimeo, so you can get a glimpse. And when you see it, then you'll get it. Like, I literally been underground with this hip hop stuff. Like, I've been fortunate. I've had a really beautiful career. I've done a lot of different things. I spent a decade in advertising. I've had my own companies in different realms, but I always kept my hip hop pure, and it's just something that I love. With hip hop, I wasn't doing it for the money. I was investing my own money. I was giving back to the community, creating platforms, Like I would pay money, take a loss to bring someone over from Detroit, a legend like Royce the 5'9" or Marv 1, just because I wanted to show people how my people, my community get down. So, and that's why I've had like this kind of love-hate tension recently, because it's become so commercialized and people are like, well, where are you at? Why aren't you doing this, doing that? Because it was never about that for me. So, but I am, for the 20-year anniversary of the Aire mic, we are going to step into the commercial world, the commercial industry. I've got a connection with Tencent, and Tencent has invested in the Aire mic heavily. And so we're going to start making music. And what I want to do is bridge the East and West and allow my brothers and sisters in the West to make music with us together. So it's my first time as a record exec, coming from an independent underground promoter, stepping into the record exec world. I'm quite humble. I've never wore that hat before. I got to deal with Empire as well. We put out 2 songs for the Warrior TV show. I don't know if you've seen the TV series on HBO Cinemax made by Bruce Lee.
Yes.
We've got 3 songs. I've got 3 songs on season 2. So I was fortunate enough to do that project and to work with Shannon Lee and my partner Chops. Chops is a legendary producer from Philadelphia. He's the first like Chinese American hip hop producer. He's from the legendary group the Mountain Brothers. They had like a deal with Sprite, and they were signing to Rough House Records, you know, with Cypress Hill and DMX and the Fugees. You had a Chinese American hip hop group called the Mountain Brothers in the 90s. And Chops has been producing hip hop for the likes of Kanye West. He's made beats for Kanye West. Who does that? For Nicki Minaj, for Ice Cube, The Game. He's a legend, quiet behind the scenes. And we got to deal with Warrior, and we hooked up my man GNS Yao Yao. He's part Tibetan, part Mongolian rapper. He placed a song in the show. We went out and we just shot a music video last year, like 5 months after COVID, after the rest of the world was going crazy. We went to Wuhan in October of last year and shot a music video on the streets with Chinese Chicano biker gang rolling through the streets, doing our thing. And then my homegirl Nunu from Yunnan. I work a lot with a lot of ethnic minorities. She's Miaozu, and she did a video, a song. And then my man Kiga from Mongolia did an amazing song, and he signed to Pac's label. Pac to the United States. A lot of people know him for being on Sway in the Morning Wake Up Show with Shady. They were rapping and freestyling. Pac from Xi'an. So I'm stepping into that realm, and look for good things soon. We taking that time. We patient with it. If anyone does see this and wants to reach out to me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I don't have much of a presence. You might have to Google me to find out, what we've done in the underground. There's some glimpses of it, but
what do they Google?
Streets.
What do they Google? Just your name?
Google Aire mic Showtyme with a Y, SHOWTYME, and Aire mic Showtyme. You'll get some articles and some videos and some information. But my Twitter and Instagram, because I'm completely in the Chinese world, I don't use any of that. I don't have any social media imprint. I use Weibo, Weixin. I'm completely submerged in the Chinese community. I'm talking, I went from doing 116 shows to doing over 400 shows in a year, traveling all across the country. I've been to over 60 cities, traveling continuously across the country. That journey itself, seeing every city rise and everything that's happening from Wuhan to Tibet. Been to Tibet twice. I took the Dalai Lama hip hop to Tibet. We did rap shows up there. Like, I've been all over Chongqing, your hometown. I'd love to kick with you about that. I've had an amazing journey. I've been able to see the entire spectrum of life in China. People from the villages and the countryside to the business people, to the gray area, you name it, to the elites. They all kind of rub elbows in the hip hop community for whatever reason. So it's given me a massive network in the community to engage with. And then 2019, before the pandemic, my dream was to start. I was always bringing American artists to China. I was going to start bringing Chinese artists to America. And I was blessed by one of my brothers from Wuhan This young brother went to Detroit. He hooked up with another African American, another Caucasian brother that speaks fluent Chinese and does martial arts. And the three of them, a white guy, a black guy, a Chinese guy, come up with the idea to say, hey, let's build a Chinatown in Detroit. And they started the Detroit Chinatown Festival in 2018. And we did the second year in 2019. And I brought, for the first time ever, a group of rappers, to their first visit to the United States. 4 rappers from across China. And we went to Detroit, we went to LA, we went to San Francisco, networking and building and doing showcases. And then we got back, COVID hit, and I've been here ever since. So I wanted to do more international travel.
Okay, so I wanted to loop back to what you said earlier. You said back in 2005, there was a point where you felt like the East and the West the twins shall never meet, right? How do you feel about that now? How do you feel about the prospect for the cultural exchange today, 2021?
I think that the situation has gotten much worse than that time. It's far worse. But I don't lose hope. And I think that it's going to take more than a generation to kind of repair the psychological damage that's been done by the propaganda coming from, primarily I blame our political leaders. The media has fed into it, but the fact that our political leaders have fed into it so much, I don't think they understand the repercussions. And when you look back in the 1870s, when they burnt down the Chinatowns, I remember, I don't know if it was the San Francisco or the LA one that they burnt down, and I remember a quote from the Secretary of State at that time. And it was really profound because he said that, the only reason that we were able to get to this state of violence where we would burn down a town and label these people as a disease. Remember, they were blaming these people for the Black Plague, and they burned the whole town down and lynched people. The Secretary of State said the American politicians created the climate for which this could happen. And we're at that point in the United States of America. So many people are confused by the fear-mongering, and the only reason there's no pushback is because, it serves the interests of the political class in America right now. Both Democrats and Republicans, for their domestic agenda, can make China the boogeyman to get those votes. And also, they feel to revitalize our nation, China has to be the boogeyman. So we're in a really dark place. But I have hope, and I'll never give up because of the work that I've committed my life to, my own legacy. Those wonderful people in China that have always treated me good, that are level-headed. And all I can do is be a part of the solution and not get distracted by the negativity. It's just keep building bridges, keep sharing information. And when I pass on, the struggle continues. But you got to have people to do the work and never underestimate the power of one. Don't think just because you're one person that your voice can't impact thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions or even change the world. Keep shouting, keep fighting, keep struggling, keep pushing on. Hopefully, United States and China patches it up and we don't go to nuclear holocaust and World War III. But, I still have hope, man. I still have hope.
Awesome. So for my Chinese followers and for my followers who live in China, how do they find you on Weibo? What is your Weibo ID?
Nah, man, I'm really low. I'm a real low key underground dude. I appreciate that. I like being invisible. I like to be invisible and low key. I'm not findable. No, okay. It's all good. If they really wanted to find me, they would have found me. That's 大家好，你们都知道我是谁？我是 Showtime， 欢迎上海来跟我一起玩吧，没问题吧？你就
I'll take you up on that. I'll take you up on that. When the pandemic is over, I'm gonna come find you in Shanghai. I'll make you take me, show me around in all the hip hop scene in China.
For sure, it'll be my pleasure, brother. It'll be my pleasure.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Okay, well, we're almost reaching the 1 hour mark. Thank you, Dana, for making the time to come talk to us. And I want to make the episode to talk to like in-depth dive into the so-called racism issue in China, and the debunking of the Western narrative. Let's make that happen, because I think that will be very important, especially for a lot of people who haven't heard the story from on the ground, because you, especially with your connection, I know you have a lot of stories. So, yeah. All right, guys.
Let's do it. Long overdue.
Yeah. let's do it. So for my audience, for the people who listen in, thank you so much for listening, for watching. Any questions you may have for Dana, put it in the comments, and I will compile a list. And next time I get together with Dana, we'll go off those questions. So thank you, everyone. Signing off. Cheers.
Peace and love.